I'm Indrani. Welcome to Moviaj. Today we are speaking to an immigrant author, and she resides in Mississauga, and she will be talking about immigrant gaze, and she will be talking about her books and what sort of positioning does an immigrant author have, and
Mhm,
do they actually like the tag or not?
mhm.
So welcome, Moushumi, to
Thank
this
you.
chat session. Thank you for agreeing to do this.
Thank you
Um,
for having me.
so our first question is
Eh,
from the start. Take
Yes.
us back to the time you immigrated to this country, and how difficult or easy was it
Mm,
to settle in? And if
okay.
you have tapped into any resources
Mhm,
to ease you into the new
mhm.
life, tell us about that as well.
Okay. So firstly, my name is Moushumi Chakrabarty, and as I said, I live in Mississauga. I came to this country 25 years ago,
Oh,
and we've been here since. We came from India, Kolkata, actually, and then we settled here. So as you asked me about what my journey was like, it wasn't very easy in the beginning. I distinctly remember, when the first snowfall hit and those long gray days, they made me crazy. I was ready to up and leave. I mean, it was too much for me. I had two small kids at the time, and it was very hard to be engaged. And you're not settled. You have this feeling of not being in your element, and everything is new, and it was just wasn't comfortable. So that was it was not a very wonderful period in my life, let's put it that way. But I think slowly, once the weather changed and I got to know people, uh, things became much better for me. And so that is one of my biggest, I would say, one of the best ways in which I learned to cope was making friends. That helped me a lot. It helped my family to feel a sense of community and to feel that this could be home for us. So that was there. Uh, as far as resources are concerned, I think for me it was the library because I'm a big reader. So I needed books very much, and that excited me such a lot because the scope of books here that was available was just phenomenal for me, and that also helped me ground myself. So that was another way.
couldn't agree more. I have had a similar journey as well.
Mm,
Hated the
yeah.
gloomy days.
Yes.
It's very difficult. The weather
Yes.
sort of hits you in
Oh,
the beginning,
absolutely, absolutely.
and I think slowly and gradually you
Mm,
get into that groove,
yeah.
and you start, as they say, it's never a
Mm.
bad weather, it's always bad clothing. So I started probably very
True,
many
true.
layers, so i,
Yes,
I got
yes.
better. Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
true. um I know you wear many hats, but today we're going to only talk about
Hmm, hmm.
the author,
Yes,
you,
yes.
and how did that journey start? Tell us a bit from the beginning, like how did that journey start, and um, uh, tell us about your motivations and
Mm.
inspirations. If you could also briefly talk about the plot of your books.
Okay.
Yeah.
Firstly, I must make it clear I'm not a fiction writer. I'm a non-fiction writer. I actually trained to be a journalist in India, which I was, and in the Middle East as well, where I lived before. And so, because of my journalism days, it was very hard for me to imagine stuff. It was always grounded in facts. For me, that was the starting point. And so when I used to work for a magazine and of course newspapers in India and Bahrain, and then when I came here, I naturally started to look for a job in the journalism field. But as I said, the weather was so bad and the kids were too small, and that just didn't work out. So then I decided to, move towards writing something else. And that, for me, that was of course, the idea of a book. I've always wanted to write a book um, for a very long time. And I thought, okay, you know what, this is the best time to start. And as I mentioned before, the library offers you so many resources. So you know where you're going or how you're going to go that way. So anyway, I actually started researching on what to do when you want to write a book. And the first thing you need to do is to research. What are the subjects? And because I write mainly nonfiction, and so naturally I focused on research and finding out which publisher publishes what kind of books. So that's a big thing. So you can't approach a fiction publisher with a nonfiction, and vice versa, of course. Proposal. So then another thing is writing a proposal, and after a lot of trial and error, you fix a subject in your mind, and then you craft a proposal, which is of course a long process. So that happened, and then of course the inevitable rejections. That is something which always will happen, and as a creative person, everyone faces that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I did approach a few houses, and I mean the big ones, they won't give you the time of day, and the smaller ones were too wishy-washy kind of thing. So but I think just by sheer perseverance, I got in touch with the publisher who published my books. It was a company based out of Halifax, in the East Coast. At the time, they were later bought out by a Toronto-based company, and so Lorimer Publishers. They were the company, and so I approached this wonderful woman. She gave me my first break. Actually, she told me that just craft the proposal should be you know. Done in this particular way, and your subject is good, but you could work on the proposal a bit. And so that's how the ball started rolling. And so it's just happened that I got my first contract with them to write a book. So this is the first book that I wrote. This is called Fighting for Women's Rights. The
It's amazing.
adventures of so this is, I don't know, is it coming ulto in the thing, but
No, no, no. This is coming
okay.
perfect. Fighting for
Okay.
women's rights. So have you based it out of India, based it out of which geographical
No,
location is
so
it,
so
or is it just universal?
No, so this is actually there's this lady, she was one of the first feminists in Canada. Interestingly, she was born in Pune in India.
Oh,
And
okay.
I come from Pune. I grew up in
Oh,
Pune. So there
oh,
was this instant connection. She's the lady who, if you've seen the movie The King and I, which is a very famous Hollywood movie, The King and I, she's the lady in the book, in the movie. Of course, Hollywood has done all sorts of things with her, but that was not her real story. So she has a very interesting history. She had a very interesting history. And she later immigrated here. Um, and she's did some great work in for women, and their right to education and all of that. So it's a very interesting story of how she got from where she was to where she finally reached. So this book is about her, and it's an extraordinary story, as I say, extraordinary adventures of Anna Leonowens. So that's the book.
that's
She
amazing.
Yeah, so this book is actually available in the libraries here. So if anyone wants to read, they're welcome to. Unfortunately, it's out of print. It's not anymore in print. This was in 2005. So this and
Okay.
it's the second book which I wrote is about again, it's about the Canadian feminists, but
Champions of women's rights.
yeah, so
Okay.
this is a similar kind of book, but these are on more contemporary women who also, work in the women's rights field. So it's both are with the same publisher. So that's the story of my books.
This is amazing. So, do you like the tag of an immigrant author? And do you think that uh, immigrant authors do have a different gaze,
Mm.
and the stories that come out of them
Um,
are different? I just
I
wanted to understand your perspective on
Yes,
this.
yes. Again, we have to remember I'm talking about nonfiction at this point. So I don't find any significant difference. I don't know anything about being a fiction writer because I don't write fiction, so I have no idea about that. But as far as nonfiction is concerned, I really don't think there's any difference. You take a subject, you research it, you think about which angle you're going to position it, and you write the book.
But
That's how it
but
is.
the fact that your first book is
Hmm,
about someone who
hmm,
was based out of Pune
hmm,
and then immigrated. So was there,
hmm,
did you kind of, did that subject attract you, the very fact that she comes from Pune? So I mean,
hmm,
sometimes it's not very accurate, but
hmm, hmm,
I was trying to see if it is,
hmm.
somewhere in the backdrop, does that influence an immigrant author? But
I
you think no,
Yeah, I
more or
don't
less.
think so.
Yeah.
The only reason when I was researching, I was looking for interesting women with interesting stories. She came from Pune. Yes, she was born in Pune. And there is a bit of a rumor that she was half English and half Indian. So that's all shrouded in mystery because she was very careful to project only a white image, this woman. But however, the fact that she had a very interesting journey, she made it on her own without
Yes.
any male help in that
Yes.
male dominated society.
Yes.
I thought that was the
That
interesting part.
itself is a story. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that's the reason I focused on her particularly. You see, I wouldn't say you can't really call her an immigrant in that sense because she was a white woman for all intents and purposes, and she came here. That's about it. So it's a little different. Mhm.
So tell us about your process of writing. Do you face
Mm,
a writer's block? Uh,
mm,
have you written something recently, or did you face writer's block when you wrote them? Tell,
mm.
talk to us about the process, actually.
Process, yeah,
Yeah.
process is extremely important. Um, like every other creative endeavor, I think practice is uh, absolutely key, right? So again, if I decide that, you know what, today I don't feel like writing because I don't feel inspired to write, you're never going to make it. Whether you like to or not, every day you set yourself a goal. I'm going to write 200 words. That's it, 200 words, not even more than that. So then, that helps you get over the slump. As far as process for these books were concerned, it was a very long process simply because especially for my first book, I actually went to Halifax because she was based out of Halifax. She all her papers and all her correspondence and all the work that she did, it is actually in the archives, in the Halifax archives. So I had to make a trip there to actually do that research. So research is a big part of my process. And
Absolutely.
as I said, because of course, people who write fiction also have to do research. But for me, since this is nonfiction, it is based in fact. Of course, when you're doing this kind of thing, it's called creative nonfiction, which means you kind of make up a story, but the facts have to be there.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is and writing, showing up every day, basically, whether you want to or not, you write, and then there's a lot of then it goes back to the editor, comes back to you. You take into account what the editor wants you to do. And so there's a lot of back and forth before you actually see it in this form.
True.
Yeah.
I think everybody talks about that discipline. If you don't have that
Yes.
discipline,
Yeah.
it's very hard to
Yeah.
kind of
It
complete
is.
it within a certain deadline,
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's true.
absolutely. So,
Yeah.
what are you reading currently? One of your favorite books and something that you're reading now?
Mm. Um, so I've been thinking about this. I can't give you one name for a favorite book. I have a number of books which I read and reread sometimes. But some of the authors who come to mind, who I really like, are Selvadurai, Sham Selvadurai. He's a Sri Lankan author,
Okay.
absolutely fabulous. Another
Okay.
one is David Chariendi. I don't know how it's pronounced, but probably Chariendi. He's also, I think he's Sri Lankan.
Okay.
They're all based out of Canada. Very,
Okay.
very powerful writing.
Okay.
Uh, there is another Black author. Her name is Essie Edugan, and she wrote a book recently, blew my mind. So I
Okay.
read mostly um, a lot of fiction which deals with topics which are universal and
Okay.
which I can relate to in some way or the other, as a woman, as an immigrant, as a mother. I don't know, different ways in which, you know, they give you something. That being said, I'm also a big fan of the murder mystery.
Okay.
So I read a lot of those as well.
Okay. That's a big range.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is.
So last but not the
Mhm,
least,
mhm,
any advice for closet writers or authors
mm,
to kind of explore the market? How do they? It's
mm.
very difficult to kind of
Yeah,
get in.
yeah.
Uh, so how do they approach it? What
Um,
should they do? Are there any do's and don'ts?
mm. Again, it depends upon what kind of writing you're looking at. Now, some people might just write for their own selves, for their own mental health. And that's perfectly uh, legitimate, really. Because if you journal, I think it helps you a lot. And I'm a big fan of journaling as well. So, anyway, so that is one thing. That is one way you can do it, just to keep a journal of your daily life. That's one way to get the juices rolling so that it builds a kind of discipline. As far as breaking into the market, I don't know. It's very hard. Like after I finished, my first book was out in 2005. The second was in 2011. So, and it just because you've had one book published doesn't mean that they're going to wait for you with open arms. It's not like that. It's the same process all over again.
Yeah.
So
But do
not
you think it is harder now, or was it
it's
harder
it's
that time?
always no, it's
Okay.
always hard. It's
Okay.
always hard. The market is so saturated with so many good talented writers. It's very hard, and I think though you might say, okay, I'm very talented and I'm disciplined and I'm doing all the right things, and I think an element of luck is also um, present. Yeah, so you
That
just try.
couldn't agree more
Yeah,
with that. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank
you're
you for this
welcome.
chat session. Thank you for agreeing to do this. Thank you for giving
No problem.
such amazing nuggets. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you.